Welcome to Baseball Focus. I'm your host, Pat Henderson, and today we'll be joined by Baseball Focus blogger Pat Ouellette. We'll go over the surprises, the disappointments, and take a look at this week's Baseball Focus breakdown. Power rankings, sorry. Pat, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Let's just jump right in. Which players so far in the early season have been the biggest surprises so far?
I guess first off, I'd start off with Edwin Encarnacion on the Blue Jays. He's a guy who's brought up by the Reds and has kind of been a bust for the first 4 or 5 years of his career. Hasn't really developed the way both the Blue Jays and the Reds thought he would. And this year, he's actually just gone off. 17 home runs so far, and he's actually been the best player in the Blue Jays, better than Jose Bautista and the rest of the solid Toronto lineup. So he's a guy I definitely didn't see this coming, and is definitely one of the bigger surprises of the season so far. Next, I definitely got to go with James McDonald from the Pirates. The Pirates have had a dry spell of developing pitchers lately. If you go back to Jason Schmidt back in the early 2000s, to Oliver Perez, they've just kind of had a dry spell since then. And McDonald's really kind of blossomed this year.
They got him as like a throw-in from the Dodgers a few years back.
Exactly. Yeah, he kind of came in as a throw-in, as a reliever early on, and they've definitely done a lot of good work with him. So I believe he has a sub-3 ERA this year, and he's averaging almost a strikeout per inning. So he's a guy who I definitely did not see this coming this year.
Do you think he'll be able to keep it up based on his peripherals?
I certainly hope so. I know that the Pirates last year had a nice start, and they kind of waned in the second half. So hopefully for their sake, he kind of stays consistent throughout the season.
Flipping to the other side of the coin, which players have been the biggest disappointment so far?
You definitely got to start off with Justin Upton here. He's a guy who many predicted to be an MVP candidate this season. He's kind of along the lines of Ken Griffey Jr. or somebody like that. 5-tool player, can pretty much do anything on the field, and to this point has just been a complete bust. At this point, he has below a 700 OPS, which is just brutal. A guy who has this kind of talent that's like 365 is just inexplicable. And because of him, the Diamondbacks are one of the worst teams in the NL West. This is a team that is loaded with talent, and many predicted to win the NL West. So he's a guy who I think is one of the biggest disappointments in baseball so far.
Battling some injuries early on, kind of off to a poor start as well.
Yeah, he did battle some injuries, but pretty much a lot of people in baseball have injuries too. And at some point, you got to learn how to fight through those,
especially when you're young.
Exactly.
Who else are we looking at?
I feel like any sort of disappointment list would be incomplete without Clay Buchholz, who, despite his past 2 starts, has allowed 2 earned runs or less in each start, and he still has over a 6 ERA, and that kind of proves how poorly.
One of the worst pitchers in baseball.
He, all his peripherals. It's kind of surprising when you look at some of his peripherals and you realize that he's averaging over a 300 average on balls hit in play, and he's averaging well above his career walk rate, and he just basically hasn't been able to get people out. He's averaging less than 2 miles an hour less than he did back in 2010 on his fastball, and that's just been a big cause for concern.
Well, we'll see if those guys can rebound as the season goes along. Taking a look at the power rankings, it's been a real interesting season. You have the Rangers at the top, which isn't a surprise. But then if you look, the names on there, the Dodgers, the Nationals, the White Sox, Orioles, Marlins, besides the Yankees, you don't really expect any of those teams to be in that top 10. What's going on so far?
Honestly, I'd say the common denominator for at least those top 4 or 5 teams has been depth of starting pitching. Definitely the Rangers with Yu Darvish and Matt Harrison and all those guys, and then you have the Dodgers, who obviously have the Cy Young Award winner in Clayton Kershaw, but they also have a guy who pretty much came out of nowhere in Chris Capuano, who was just back from the dead basically.
He had, was it 3 years ago? He was a good pitcher for the Brewers,
but
since then he's just been nowhere.
Yep, exactly. So they picked him up off the scrap heap, and they've kind of brought him. He's pretty much been the ace of their rotation so far. So behind him, they have Aaron Harang, who's been solid for them. And then the Nationals obviously they probably have the best starting staff in baseball at this point. Behind Strasburg, you have
Gio's been a beast.
Yeah, you have Gio Gonzalez, who's been one of the best in baseball, and you have Steven Strasburg, who obviously speaks for himself. And then you have who I consider pretty underrated as Jordan Zimmerman, who is a 200 strikeout guy who just kind of goes under the radar and continues to pitch very well. And then, as a 4th starter, having Edwin Jackson is just a real luxury.
Yeah, so I'd say a lot of teams could use that. Well, thank you so much for coming on. That's all we have for today. I'd like to thank Pat Ouellette, my guest, and make sure you check him out on Baseball Focus blog, and that's baseballfocus.mlbblogs.com. I'd like to thank the crew for their hard work in bringing this show together, and most importantly you, the viewers at home. Thank you. Tune in next week.